was talking to him, and then I kind of fell asleep when we were talking. And I woke up and he was eating my vagina. Hi, everybody. How are you today? This is Miss Dee with Sides of It podcast. I got my drink and I'm ready to sip, honey. So today we will be talking about accountability. Okay, accountability. What is accountability? I'm thinking. The definition is a fact or condition of being accountable, responsibility. Here are some similarities, some synonyms. Here are some synonyms: responsibility, liability, answerability, reporting, obedience, and an antonym is unaccountability. That's all it says. So my question today, I'm hoping this episode will be a little thought-provoking. You could kind of look into yourself a little bit and see if you are truly an accountable person, or do you expect others to be accountable in a different way than accountability really is. So we heard the Google definition of accountability, but now let me tell you what I believe accountability is and what others believe accountability is. So to me, accountability can be just listening to what a person has to say. It could be applying what a person says into your daily life. Accountability could be really anything that shows a person or shows you that the person you're telling their issues to or their flaws to is truly listening. So accountability doesn't always look the same. And everybody has that issue and that misperception that accountability looks the same, when in all actuality, it doesn't. Some people believe that when you're being accountable, you should be accountable in a way where the listener or some people believe you should be accountable in a way they want you to be accountable, which, let's be honest, is that realistic? Some people look at accountability as agreeability, you agreeing to what they're saying. Some people look at accountability as saying, I'm sorry, or I apologize, or I'll do better next time. Some people want to hear those certain things. But is that truly what accountability is? Or is that what you just perceive it to be? Others may look at accountability as like an unhealthy situation, like surrendering to them or something of that nature. And that's not always what accountability is. You have to think about what accountability is to the person you are telling their flaws to, and the person that you're looking to get something out of. The person you're looking to be accountable, think about what accountability looks like to them before you then accuse them of not being accountable. So do me a favor and really think about that. Here is my take on what accountability doesn't look like. Accountability does not look like blaming. Accountability does not look like finger pointing. Accountability does not look like making excuses for your behavior. And accountability doesn't look like yelling or screaming or cursing when you don't like what's being said. To me, accountability is listening, as I mentioned before. You know, people sometimes say that women do not take accountability, right? That is what most men say. That is what most people say, is that other women or sometimes men as well. I mean, come on, let's be honest. A lot of men don't take accountability as well. Children, whatever. Everybody has an issue with taking accountability at some point in their lives. I believe when I started taking accountability is when I was trying not to be so much on the defense or the offense, and just kind of take a neutral ground and try to really listen to what a person is saying, thinking about why they feel that way, thinking about why I may react that way, why they perceive me that way, and think about if I'm going to take it or leave it. Am I going to fix my life, or am I just going to kind of let whatever they said go by the wayside? The way I determine on who I listen to and who I don't listen to is their intent. If I feel like a person has the best interest at heart for me, then I may listen to them a lot better. If I feel like a person is hating on me or jealous or anything malicious going on, spiteful going on, I may be less inclined to listen to them and take accountability for whatever I may do. When it comes to situations that you have, say, with your friends or family, and you guys may fall out or something, I would say you want to kind of assess the situation on your own. And I kind of do what I call it is self-therapy. I kind of ask myself, why would a person think of me in this way? Why would they come to the conclusion that I did something wrong to them? Did I truly do something wrong? I may go and find other people and get their perspectives or opinions on the situation. Now, to be clear, we are not always able to give all perspectives of one situation. We're not able to account for emotions and feelings, okay? So when I am giving this dialogue or situation between what happened between me and another person, once again, I'm not always able to give all angles of the situation, but I can do my best. So I may go to a person and say, hey, take myself out of it, take other people out of it, and just give them a general situation. Hey, let me give you an example. If a woman caught her boyfriend texting another woman and she approached her man about it and let her know, hey, I don't like this. What is this? I don't appreciate it. And say he doesn't take accountability and he just makes excuses, right? Because that's the definition to my understanding of unaccountability, which we could Google that definition in just a moment. So unaccountability to me is like making excuses, coming up with different scenarios, being on the defense instead of really stepping back and taking the other person's feelings and their position in consideration. So I say, hey, or a woman says, hey, I really don't like the fact that you're texting this woman. It's inappropriate. I don't really like that. And then he makes excuses. And so then she in turn starts to text other men. So is that wrong of her to want to now speak to other men since her man is clearly speaking to other women, right? I would say to me, it is eye for an eye, but some people don't believe in eye for an eye. Some people don't believe, in get back, the tit for tat, but sometimes it's necessary because it's natural for us to treat people how we feel like we're being treated. And you can do all your research on that, but that is actually true, is we project our feelings onto the person who's treating us wrong. Or we project our feelings or our experiences on a person that's doing us wrong. So if you feel it is normal for you to text other women while we are in a committed monogamous relationship, now let me let you know how it feels for me now to text other men, and then we'll see how that goes then. Sometimes you have to let a person know how you feel by doing the same exact thing to them. But that is another conversation for another episode. But yeah, you go to a person and you ask them, what do you think? And that person may say, hey, it's really not right for that person to be texting other women. However, you're really not going to win the battle fighting fire with fire. Right? That's what most people or a lot of people would say. Like, you shouldn't do tit for tat. You should just kind of keep expressing yourself. But let's be honest. Sometimes when you over express yourself or you keep expressing yourself to a person, they don't listen. If they didn't hear you the first time, they didn't hear you the second time, why the hell do you think I'm going to continue to say the same shit over and over again? So no, sometimes it doesn't work. But let's look up what unaccountability is. Here we go. An antonym of accountability. Let's look what that is. The opposite is unaccountability. So how about, because in the word accountability in the synonyms, you have responsibility, liability, answerability, reporting, and obedience. I don't really agree with the obedience part of of taking accountability. I could kind of see how that would work. But I don't really agree with you have to be obedient or you have to listen to a person. You know what I mean? See, there goes that listen word again. We'll say, oh, because obedience, let's look at what obedience is. Full definition. Compliance with an order, request, or law, or submission to another's authority. I mean, I guess accountability could be with that because you are submitting to another's authority or request or feelings. So now I can kind of see how accountability has to do with obedience. But I mean, you don't always have to be accountable to what another person says. That could just be their perception or their opinion of you or what you do. So I don't know. We're gonna dig into it a little bit more because I want to get to the bottom of this, and I want us to grow together as a network, as a podcast, as me and my viewers. I want us to grow together because I feel like a lot of times we don't really get to the full definition of things. We just kind of go on in our lives, especially as we get older, kind of just go on in our lives, and whatever definition we think something is, we just kind of go with it instead of really taking a step back and seeing what's proper and improper. So let's figure out. It's crazy because, really quick, it makes me feel like accountability is subject to what you feel in a sense, because the antonyms of accountability is like unaccountability, but I don't think there's a definition for it. So let's look it up again. Okay. The antonym we're going to use, is unaccountable. And then you know what? We're also going to look up accountable and see if there's a definition change a little bit. Unaccountable. The first definition, unable to be explained. Beyond understanding, beyond comprehension, inexplicable, unexplainable, insoluble, unsolvable, incomprehensible, unfathomable, puzzling, perplexing, baffling, bewildering, mystifying. Okay, all of those, clearly, those were synonyms, by the way. Synonyms of the first definition. Second definition, of a person or organization or institution, not required or expected to justify actions or decisions, not responsible for results of consequences. Or consequences. I'm trying to process this. 1 second. I'm trying to process this. Not responsible, unanswerable. Okay. I'm getting it now, I believe. Now let's look up accountable. Maybe I started it all wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have put accountability. Maybe I should just put accountable. So let's look at that one. Of a person, organization, or institution required or expected to justify actions or decisions, responsible. I mean, so when somebody feels a type of way, you're supposed to take responsibility for their feelings or for how you made them feel. So I should take responsibility for how I made you feel. Oh, that sounds really hard coming out of my mouth. I can just imagine how it sounds coming out of other people's mouths. I have to be responsible for how I made you feel, or I have to be responsible for how a situation went. I should take my responsibility, or I should take accountability for my responsible part in a situation. Baby. I guess so. Okay, I can get down with that. I'm reasonable. I am reasonable. I don't want to be reasonable. I am reasonable. So let's keep going for the definitions. Okay, definition 2. Explicable, understandable. Explicable? That's a fucking word. Understandable, comprehensible, synonyms. Intelligible, definable, reasonable, unsurprising. And that is accountable. We're growing together here. Okay, let me digest this for a second. And kind of understand it or explain it or play it back in a way that I understand. Because if I understand, then in turn I will sound better when I'm trying to explain it. Why is it? It looks like accountability doesn't make sense to me. That's yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me give you a scenario. And then you guys let me know about who is accountable in this situation. Or because it sounds like by definition, accountability needs to be a mutual thing almost. Like one party should take responsibility for their actions and the other person should take responsibility for their actions. See, when I think of accountability, I guess I never thought of responsibility, but I don't know why, because that obviously makes sense. But I tell you what, I definitely didn't think of obedience. Oh, I don't know. It just seems like it's got a little complicated in a way. Whew. Okay. Okay. Let me give you a scenario. A scenario. Scenario is I was in a situation where my friend's man. Ooh, that is a lot to unpack actually. But I'm gonna do it. Fuck it. So I was in a situation where my friend was unavailable. We were on the odds. They were living at my house. Just give you a quick situation. They were living at my house. We were at odds. I asked her. My grandfather just passed at the time. I just found out somebody had a sickness in my family. So I asked her if she could be there for me, yet she chose to go stay the night with a guy. So in turn, remember I said her boyfriend and herself was living with me. In turn, if she wasn't available because they were arguing apparently, I asked him to be there for me and console with me and kind of listen to what I had to say, right? And so we were drinking overproof Jamaican rum, and I was smoking a black for some reason. I don't smoke, so you just know I was going through some shit if I was smoking a black and drinking rum. So that was crazy. So yeah, I was talking to him, and then I kind of fell asleep when we were talking. And I woke up and he was eating my vagina. Now, okay, a lot of people would say, most people feel like, okay, that's his fault, right? Like, why, if you passed out drunk and you didn't give him consent, why would he just start eating your vagina? Like, that's not okay. That's rape. That's technically rape. But then the friend kind of blamed me in a sense. And she was just kind of like, well, what were you wearing? And I'm like, bitch, what? She's like, what were you wearing? What was going on? And I was just like, in a way I was like, it's my house. But in another way I was like, I was dressed. But in another way I was like, I remember having on sweatpants because sometimes when I'm in a house, I'll wear like a dress or something and nothing underneath, you know what I'm saying? Or a robe and nothing underneath because I'm home. So I guess she was kind of inquiring if that's how I was dressed. And I told her, I remember having on sweatpants, for the most part. Now, to be clear, sweatpants is easy to slide up and down, especially when you're dead drunk on a couch. I mean, I'm pretty sure I was mid-conversation, mid-sentence, and just passed out, right? But here we are talking about accountability and taking responsibility for my actions. And it's like, should I be, here's a question for the viewers, should I be taking accountability for possibly how I was dressed, possibly asking him to listen to my prompts in the first place instead of waiting for her, possibly not calling the cops after, should I be taking responsibility for those things? Should I had taken responsibility? Because a few days before, the reason they were at odds, we're getting into this story, honey, aren't we? The reason they were at odds is because we had a conversation before about how I felt, to get into it, how I felt like she was neglecting me and my child in a sense to chase him. Like, when you become friends with somebody, I expect you to act somewhat of the same. I understand sometime it's going to be taken away because you're with your significant other, but when it comes to loyalty and the way you treat a person, I don't think that should change, especially if they're your friend, especially if it's a same-sex friend. Like, I don't agree with that. So it was like, at that day we were drinking as well, same alcohol, overproof rum, and he sent me a text after I went to sleep and kind of said, do you mind if I eat your vagina? And immediately I'm like, sir, like, no, you have to tell my friend, like, that's not okay. I'm gonna go ahead and give you a pass and just say you were drunk or something, but I am not going to feed into that. Like, I'm not interested, so on and so forth. So I kind of let him know, like, you need to tell her. Like, you need to tell her because I'm not with that. So it took him all day kind of to tell her, and I kind of pushed for it. Like, yo, you need to tell her before I do. Like, I'm going to tell her. When I get home from work, I will be telling her if you don't tell her. So he had my whole shift to figure it out. I worked like a 9-hour shift that day. So he ended up telling her, and then she kind of was like, F you, whatever. So in the midst of them going through that, after he sent me the text message, I still felt like I had no one. I called every single friend I had, family members that I was okay with talking with, everything. I called everyone. I just needed somebody. I was grieving. It was a lot going on. I just needed somebody. Like, I was spiraling out of control, and it seemed like he was the only one that answered. I'm just like, I just need somebody to lean on right now. Like, no, when we were talking, we did not touch. We did not flirt. It was nothing like that. But should I be taking responsibility for even contacting him? Should I have just waited for her to come back home? Or should I just waited for her to be available to me? Should I just waited another day? Like, was it selfish for me to feel like my needs needed to be met that night and he was the only one available? Should I take responsibility for that? I guess I can. I guess I could take responsibility. I guess, I don't know. I guess I should have just went to sleep. That's about the only option I had. I called everybody. So maybe I should have just went to sleep. I should have just probably cried myself to sleep, or something. I feel like I'm a lot more self-sufficient now. So, because I learned from that situation, like, maybe I shouldn't count on anyone else to make me feel better. Maybe I shouldn't count on someone else to hear my problems and give me advice, even though that is the way I cope from therapy from, when I was a teenager. Like, my coping mechanism, my go-to is to talk it out. But maybe I should have been more self-sufficient. I was weak at that moment. I should have been stronger. Is that me taking accountability? Is that me taking responsibility? Maybe I should have wore a winter coat in my house so that I wouldn't get violated. Maybe I should have wore a work jumper. Now I'm sounding sarcastic. But it's like, I don't know. Like, why should I have to change my clothes in my house in order for somebody not to take advantage of me? Knowing that I'm down, knowing that I'm drunk, knowing that I'm not conscious enough to tell you no. Why is it that I had to change what I had to go through? So anyway, we're not friends anymore because of that situation. Because I guess I felt really away because I felt like she was victim blaming. Like, I've had past experiences, not as an adult. I think that was my first time as an adult having that kind of experience. But I've had past experiences where I was taken advantage of, while I was asleep or something like that. And it was like, she wasn't to me. For her to be my best friend of 10 years at that time, it was like, why weren't you more, what's the word? Why weren't you more compassionate? Why weren't you more understanding? I may even ask, why didn't she take responsibility? You know what I mean? Why did you feel like you had to go stay the night with a random guy than to help me in my time of need? You know? But then again, she was going through something too, which I didn't understand, which will be for another episode, believe me. So it's like, I don't know. Some people did blame me for that situation. They feel like I put myself in a predicament where I shouldn't have. I should have handled it differently by at least calling the cops. See, I didn't call the cops because after that situation happened, after I was aware and I woke up and I kind of jumped up like, whoa, right? And then I ran into my room, shut the door. He didn't follow me. And there were kids in the house at the time already asleep, his kids, and I think mine. I'm sorry, I don't think my child was there. I'm sorry. My child was not there, but his kids were. He had 3 boys under the age of 9, I believe. His kids were asleep in the room, but I chose not to call the cops because he's a black man. We're in Philadelphia at the time, and he has 3 kids. Like, who's going to do anything with those kids? You know what I mean? So I felt like I didn't want to call the cops. I didn't feel like he was predatory. In my mind, it's like, okay, maybe this man just shot his shot, and it didn't, he didn't get net. It was brick. So it was just like, I don't know, maybe he thought I was disloyal. I'm not sure what it was, but like I said, I want to grow together. I don't really talk about that situation in that light. So maybe I should take accountability for that situation and whatever I did wrong, which may have been being weak in that situation. I should have just waited or something. I don't know. It's like I said, nobody answered. So I mean, he apologized. Me and my best friend aren't friends anymore. There's no communication or contact with either one of them. But let me know what you guys think. What does accountability mean to you? What do you look for when another person when you're explaining your issues or something to another person? What do you expect from them? Do you expect an apology? Do you expect them to be agreeable, agree with you? Do you expect them to be quiet and listen? Do you expect them to just change it with their actions and not really say anything? Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for them to just simply say, hey, you're right and I'm wrong? Like, what are you looking for when you're looking for someone to be accountable? Let me know what you guys think. Once again, my answer to that question is, I guess I expect them to kind of listen, not be so combative, and just maybe apply it if they see fit to their lives or to our relationship. That's what I see. But let me know what you see. So thank you guys so much for watching Sides of a Podcast. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. I hope you guys are able to answer the question. I hope I got you thinking a little bit. I hope you can apply it to your life now. You guys can follow me or the podcast, whatever you want to call it, on Twitter at Sides of It Pod. You can follow the podcast. You can follow Sides of It Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Sides of It Pod. So once again, this is Miss Dee, and thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see your answers to this week's question: what is accountability, and what does accountability look like to you? Thank you so much.